Welcome back to Breaking Down Storage Tech. Today we are breaking down the YAMIS, a multi-item sorter storage system. Specifically, we're breaking down the Slice. Now, this system has been put together by Gordon, Yamsay, and Skizzy, but the individual credits for some of the pieces in this Slice are the YAMIS from Rapscallion, Inspector Talon, and Command Leo. The box loader was designed by Pyroleft. The box display was designed by Dat Nerd, and the Slice was put together by, again, Gordon Yamsay. The Slice has 4.5 double chests per MIS category, and it has 263,000 items in the bulk capacity. And the system is, of course, entirely hopper locked. So let's just get straight into it. This is the beautiful Slice. Now, I have broken down the YAMIS, which is the multi-item sorter used in this system. That's this component right here. This will be doing all of your set-based sorting. So as you can see here, we can sort a bunch of items, and I'm not going to be covering that in that video or in this video because it's just such a complex piece of equipment, and you really should just go watch the other video if you want to learn how this works. So that brings me on to my topic. So what is a MIS? Just for a little bit of context. A MIS is a multi-item sorter, and what that basically means, as opposed to our traditional item filters where you can only filter one item, what ends up happening is we can filter multiple different items and have them all come into one chest down here. So this chest will, if we put the filters in, what will happen is it will sort all of these items right here into that singular chest. Now, why do we need a bulk capacity in a MIS? Well, that's because this system is designed for actual use, and multi-item sorters are great for a lot of things, especially early game. But one of the things they are horrible at is dealing with bulk items. So that's why normally you see a built-in bulk in a lot of multi-item sorter systems to accommodate this issue. And the YAMIS is no different. So let's just get straight into breaking this thing down. One piece of context is that the items, when they're being processed by the little bit in here, or the little bit of spaghetti, if you would say, is that we have the items and they are initially shot down this packed ice line. If I actually turn up my fly speed, I'll come over here. As you can see, they get shot up around here. They come out of that water stream, and then they go all around before then getting pulled down back here to then be processed by the multi-item sorters. Now, the reason we do this is so that way, if we're actually loading our bulk storages, we don't have to waste any processing time putting them through the multi-item sorter. So we get those out of the way and then put them through the multi-item sorter. So that makes sure we're not kind of bottlenecking our bulk sorting capacity or our bulk sorting speed. But yeah, apart from that, let's just get straight into it. So as I previously just showed, the items are getting shot across this water right here. And this is where our SS3 or Signal Strength 3 filter comes in handy, also known as the impulse style filter. But essentially what happens is we have a filter calibrated like so with 41 of our desired item types and 4 filler items that block off the rest of the hopper. Now what happens is, because this is calibrated to 45, what ends up happening is that this comparator right here can read out a signal, and as soon as we add an additional redstone dust that'll get picked up from the water stream by the hopper, this redstone wire will overflow, or the signal will overflow onto this line, where it will then power this redstone repeater and power this, turning off this redstone torch, unpowering this redstone repeater, unlocking the hopper underneath it, allowing the items to start traveling down. Now, we have to keep this at 41 to prevent any overflow onto other slices. Now, this is why traditionally in storage tech we use SS2 filters. This is why in storage tech, me personally, I prefer to use SSI filters because then I don't have to have such a big amount here. But basically, by keeping such a big amount, it makes sure that even if this was completely filled up to 64, because we have these slots that only have one item, the signal strength will never be strong enough for this to be a signal strength 3 and overflow into this line. If the signal strength goes over to 2 to make this one 1, that's fine because this just goes down to 1 and this filter can still act as normal. So we don't have to worry about that. It's only if you want to use more blockers right here and you want to reduce the amount of items stored here where you would run into a problem with the filter overflowing. So continuing onwards, the item, once it's made its way down right here, it will go into the box loader. Now this is a really nice box loader that has quite a few unique features and supports that really make this system shine and really work well for this whole system. Essentially what happens is when we're filling up the items, we take an output to this comparator right here. And this comparator right here is inputting or outputting its signal strength to this redstone wire that is already at a signal strength of 14 because we have this signal right here giving a signal strength of 15 from this redstone block carrying over to here. Now what ends up happening is until this box is fully full, this will never give a signal strength greater than 14, meaning we have no observer updates. But when we do eventually fill up this box, what will end up happening is this comparator will give out a signal strength of 15, this redstone wire will update its power, and then what will happen is this observer will update and it will run the full system, or the box breaking cycle. And we can just quickly break through that right now. What ends up happening is we use this observer to power this block and send a line down here to the hopper unlocking logic, which I'll go over once we've broken the box. But what happens is we also power this repeater right here with the pulse of the 2-tick pulse of the observer, This then cues the delay of 6 game ticks on the repeater to power this block right here, extending this sticky piston and moving this piston and this white concrete powder up. Now this is where the timings become important because we have a 2-tick update detection of this and then a 2-tick powering within, and then we have the 6 game ticks of this repeater right here powering. So what ends up happening is we actually use that because the piston only gets power for, or only needs 2 ticks to finish fully traveling. But as soon as this top piston starts to get moved by this piston right here, this comparator will actually power off, turning into this state because it has a moving block behind it and will no longer be able to pull a signal from the box. And we use this to cause a second update to the redstone wire, to update the observer again to keep this repeater powered. Now at the same time as this repeater doing all of this part, it actually sends another signal to this repeater right here to power this block and this this redstone torch. Now this redstone torch does 3 main things. It powers this dropper, this hopper, and this dispenser. Now because it's at a delay, because it's actually a repeater, what happens is when the system turns on and all of this starts firing, this redstone torch will turn off. And this allows this hopper to unlock and also these 2, dispenser and dropper, to unpower, but we don't worry about that. The reason we want the hopper to unpower or essentially unlock is because once we break the box, we actually want to pick it up once it's full. So by unlocking it, we allow the hopper to pick it up and then eventually push it into this dropper. And that's when we use the depowering sequence of the observer only giving pulses, so it only gives a set amount of time to this repeater, where eventually this redstone torch will turn back on, repowering, locking the hopper, but we don't really care about that too much. But what it also does is powers this dropper to shoot the shulker box down into the next hopper, but at the same time also repower this dispenser to get our next blocks placed. Now this dispenser is getting its shulker boxes just from this hopper line right, not this hopper line, that's for the noisiness, it's this line right here, which is pulling from just a general hopper or shulker box restock line. And that is how we get the whole thing. Now, the hopper locking or the slice locking logic that I was talking about earlier, that's just a simple note block or observer line powering all the way down to then eventually push this little bit right here, push it down 1. The reason we do that is once we move this stuff down, this block of redstone will be next to this repeater, allowing all of these redstone torches in this little tower to turn off meaning this hopper, this hopper, this hopper, and then this repeater to then this hopper all get turned off. Now at the same time, we also have a signal right here to this note block and this sticky piston to keep this observer out right here, which will then send a pulse through these rails right here. And what happens is basically this observer will get stuck out, and the reason we use a powered rail right here is if we actually go back to the logic right here, if we find those rails right here, this is what we use, if you look at the little logic right here, to run a little bit of a cooldown timer. So that means essentially what happens is we have the powered rail and the system, or one of the slices, gets unlocked, and we run a short timer for all of the individual processing to be done. And then after a while and the processing has been finished, we update this note block right here and update this observer. Now, why is that important? Well, that sends a pulse down this redstone wire right here. So if I actually use a redstone block real quick to just update and unlock the slice, as you can see, all of the torches are off. Now what happens is if we power this slice back on, what will happen is we'll pulse this piston to move this little slider back up, unpowering this line right here and resetting all of it. So if I just place this right here, bada bing, bada boom, the slice has been relocked and all is well. Now we also use the relocking of this slice to deal with our worst case scenario, our bulk is overflowing. And that's because if the shulker boxes are all getting shot down, they just follow this nice little line right here to this chest right here where we can store all the boxes. As you can see, I have it set up for redstone. Now, if all of these were to fill up, the box would get stuck in this dropper right here, and we use the repowering signal to power this redstone torch, or to repower this redstone torch to repower this dropper to shoot out the shulker box into this water stream where we can have it go to a separate box collection, which is somewhere in there. Now, I said I wasn't going to talk about the miss too much. I'm just going to go over a quick few brief details. So as I explained in the video, we have our main input coming in from this direction. We have our items coming through here, and it runs through the whole system. And it eventually, whether it is if it is in the set, what happens is the set item gets sent back, and the item gets pushed down into this hopper right here, the item we actually want to sort, and it can just make its way down all of these chests right here, where you can have your nice little UI for all of your multi-item or your multiple item types. Now, the reason why I personally am a fan of a stack like this is because if you have particularly, if I look in this set, let's say you have a particularly quite a large amount of dead tube coral fans for any particular reason, what you can actually do is, if you only had access to the one double chest and you filled this all with dead tube coral fans, and then you decided to, or your items, or you had extra items after a double chest worth, these two double chests worth of items would just be completely blocked and you'd lose the whole point of a miss. Now obviously this is an over exaggeration, and this is more likely to happen with a few item types instead of just one, but it gets my point across that by having multiple double chests, you increase the chance of you getting availability to all your items. Now another thing to note is we actually use take another double purpose for the sticky piston and this redstone block. Now, this originally in the system is used right here to unlock the hopper underneath it to allow the item that's getting filtered to go through and run into the whole system. We actually take a double output from this redstone block right here, and that is to update or power this redstone wire right here. And if I go over to the system right here, you can see we actually, if you look here in the system, we have all of it configured for all of the outputs, and we use it to, and if you eventually followed all of the cyan concrete line, you'd eventually get your way to another clock to then keep the system running and keep the hopper or hoppers unlocked. As you can see, a lot of these systems, or a lot of the hoppers are, or since it's 100% hopper locked system, all of these hoppers need to be unlocked or have the availability to be unlocked when the system is actually running. So that's why we have this second line. While we're on the topic of hopper locking, we might as well cover the full thing. Now, there's just a couple main lines. We have this line right here, which obviously powers these lines right here, but it uses a redstone torch right here to get to these two hoppers. We have the hopper locking up top to deal with all of the noisy miss hoppers that can be hopper locked or that need to be hopper locked when the system's not running. But at the same time, we take a dual output to these two repeaters right here to power these droppers and their respective hoppers. Now on the top, you have the same thing for the input hoppers. And at the bottom right here, you have another hopper line to run this little redstone tower to then power all of the neighboring hoppers right here for the double chests. Once we've processed our items, we can actually use a little box loader right here. Now, this is quite a nice little box loader and it's incredibly compact. The only downside of it, in my opinion, is the fact that it does not have box collection. It is manually box collection, but to have such an amazing slice and with some of the features you'll see later on, I think it's definitely a worthy sacrifice. In the scenario that you don't have a box already, this system is smart and will automatically place that box for you, because it keeps this hopper unlocked when you don't have a box. When you eventually get a box, it'll push it through this hopper and into this dispenser. And that's where we use the double utilization of this comparator right here, the two uses. And one of them is to run this dispenser right here to then to get read through this block into this comparator to then give a little bit of a power output to this block to run the whole box placing sequence. And this is a scenario of another good double utilization of the very compact space that we have, is because this system uses the repowering of a comparator to do the box placement sequence, and it uses the unpowering to do the box breaking. So once we get a shulker box in the dispenser, we actually run the regular box placement sequence, because what happens is we power with this comparator, we power this block and this note block, moving down this block of redstone. Now, this sticky piston will immediately unpower because it's no longer getting powered, so it'll start moving. What will happen is 2 ticks later, once this sticky piston has fully retracted, it will connect with this stone brick wall right here, updating this observer to power this dispenser. Now, also at the same time, 2 ticks later, we have this redstone repeater getting powered by this redstone block to power this block, unpowering this redstone torch to repower or power this torch in the first place, and lock this hopper so no items get stuck. And you have a very limited amount. If I go over here, you have a very limited amount of buffer boxes. Now, you do still have some buffer boxes, but it's not the end of the world. Now, in the scenario that you already have a box, well, then that's where things become very useful. In the scenario that you already have a box, that is where we use the actual box breaking sequence of the comparator not detecting anything. Because once we empty this box, because the shulker box is in front of the dispenser, what ends up happening is the comparator has no update to detect. So it then unpowers this line, bringing this block of redstone back up. Now, before the 2 game ticks of this repeater, what ends up happening is, because this immediately gets powered, in the first tick that it's powered, it will disconnect with the stone brick wall because it's no longer a full block. And we use this to break the box and stay up, because the redstone block is staying right there. Now, the 2 ticks later, what we do is we allow the redstone repeater to unpower and update this redstone torch, or power this redstone torch, unpowering this torch, allowing a box to come through here. And this is where we use the same system as on the first initial box placement of this block being here fully. And that's because once this box is here fully, or this block is here fully, and has been fully placed there and is no longer a block or a moving entity, what we can do is we use the comparator output to check this dispenser, which will have a box in it either from buffer or from the unlocking that'll happen a few ticks later, because this will only take 2 ticks to fully move, and this will take 2, 4, 6. So worst case scenario, you're waiting 4 ticks more. Other worst case is just 2 ticks, and this comparator can immediately power and run the exact same sequence we were talking about on this half. And that is how the box loader works. Now it's time to talk about my favorite feature, and the feature that I think sets the YAMIS apart from many of other MIS systems, and that is its box call system. And what that essentially means is, let's say, for example, for packed ice, well, our main chest is currently very empty, and that might be because we set our item input wrong, or we're just going through a hard patch in our world and we just used up all of our packed ice. What we want to be able to do is call a box up here if it has any items, and let's say it's packed ice, we can take packed ice, and if it has any items, we would want to call this box. Obviously they'd be fully stacked and stuff, but we would want to call this box if it does, and if it doesn't, we wouldn't want to call it at all. And this is where I think the power of the YAMIS really shows. Essentially, if you hit this note block, it'll call the box, even if you have a box right here, but it'll call the box that you have all the way placed up here. And how this works is when you place this note block right here, you fire this little observer line to then power right here, and this doesn't interrupt at all with any of the systems in the box loader, because this box loader is self-contained in this pretty much area. It's super neat and super compact. Actually, it's this area, but semantics. So it powers this line and then updates this powered rail right here, which powers this line right here, to then run this observer line using the update of the door to carry on the signal, the extra 2 blocks. And we're just continuing all the way through, and we use glass to make sure we have no internal powering. Because if the box is empty and we don't actually break it, we wouldn't want to preemptively unlock the slice. What we actually do is we use the powering of this piston right here to move this white concrete powder up and then back down to send a signal through these observers to power this block and power this repeater. Now, if you remember from earlier, this is the exact repeater, or this is the exact block we need to send power to actually run the full thing, or run the box breaking sequence. We actually unlock the lines right here, which does in fact, even if we are not breaking the box, we'll unlock it for the period of time that the clock over there is set for, but that is a must-have in this scenario for it to be so compact. But what we actually do is we run this sequence right here, and this is where the intelligence of these little 6 blocks right here really come to shine. And that's because when we power this and we update this piston and this white concrete powder to move up and break the line to cause an update in this note block, that is using the comparator already being powered and then not being powered from the line of sight, you could say, being broken, causing the power to come up here to power or quasi-power this piston to break the box. But let's say if we were on this side, we didn't have any items. Well, if we didn't, the line would move up and nothing would actually happen to this comparator because there's no items in the box. So what that means is if we have no items, we're not going to waste any time breaking the box because there's no update sent to this note block, so nothing for this observer to detect, and so no quasi-connectivity, and nothing happens. We just unlock the slice temporarily and then repower it when the timer runs out. And I just think that is just the most insanely cool little piece of detail that is so incredibly compact. It's literally these 6 blocks right here integrated perfectly into the system. But that's what gives us such intelligence. For example, I can just run this, and obviously the slice will stay unlocked because I don't have a timer set up, but the box didn't run. The slice is still completely empty. But if I were to now put these in here and actually run the box, we'll see it'll get put in this and get run into our shulker box display immediately. And this shows, like, let's say you had no ice or right here, you could quickly press that button in the worst case scenario and you'd get your packed ice. And that just shows one of the amazing uses of storage tech, in my opinion. It's just these little things of problem solving that make getting access to your items that much easier. So I'm just going to quickly run through a lot of the systems, not all of them, mainly just the box loader and the line right here, or the box breaking and replacing systems, in tick freeze, so that way you guys can completely understand the system. So if I just completely fill this up right here, if I now tick step, give the 2 ticks to then update this redstone wire, because this comparator takes 2 ticks to update. Here we got the observer updating. We can see the slice beginning to unlock through the update of this observer. And then shortly after, we have this line updating, 1, 2, and then we should get an update here in a second from this line, and this comparator no longer be powered, and that's when this starts to kick in to then unpower this line if we 2 ticks later, and this is when this line starts to power because of the updates this line. And then we see that we fully retract because we have the extra ticks in the repeater to then fully come down, and then the system slowly resets. But eventually we got our box, and the box was already spat out, so it's down here. And then if I tick unfreeze, it'll slowly make its way down right here, and then I can use this block right here to relock the slice. And we have our box right here. Now, doing this one last time for the box display, might as well clear it. We can step, and we can see the retraction, 1, 2, and we can see this immediately update and the shulker box immediately break when this piston starts to fire. And we have the 2 tick delay in this redstone torch. Here we have the update again from this comparator, now reading the box signal strength from the dispenser. This starts to move down. This gets powered immediately from the observer, and then the whole slice just resets. Overall, a really insane, really cool system that I am a huge fan of. The UI is great, especially with these bits right here, the features right here. My only comment would be, I'm not the largest fan of non-collection box displays, but at the cost of getting this little system for the box breaking the preemptive box breaking, I think it's definitely worth it. And you have the power of the noisiness just managed to be tucked right into here. And for how compact it is and how jam-packed the features are in this system, I'd really classify this as one of the greatest misses. So that is it for today's video, guys. I really hope you enjoyed, and yeah, I'll catch you in the next one.